Welcome back, everyone, to Invitation to Puzzles. Today, we have a Tapa that is by Walker. This is part of the Gap series, which I'm sure you'll see in Invitation to Puzzles a lot. So one of the things I suppose I should tell you as I invite you into puzzles is where to get puzzles that are reasonably accessible. And so every day over on the Cracking the Cryptic Discord server, linked down below, they post a genuinely accessible pencil puzzle, a GAPP for short. And they also post a genuinely accessible Sudoku, a GAS for short. And those are both great sources for puzzles that are usually, as the name suggests, accessible. Okay, so today we have a Tapa. So in Tapa, we need to shade some cells, and I can pull up an example grid image here. Maybe I can't. One moment. Open image in new tab. How about that? I guess I can't. Okay, well, you'll have to believe me. So what we're going to do in a Tapa, maybe Tristan will put the sample image into the thing. What we're going to do in a Tapa is that we're going to shade some cells in the grid so that all the shaded cells are connected. So we're going to shade some cells. So the shaded cells are all going to be connected. Some cells are going to be unshaded. We can't make it 2x2, so no 2x2s are shaded. And the clues here, the Tapa clues, these sort of things that you see floating around, they tell you for cells where there's a clue given, first of all, those cells are always unshaded, so you cannot shade a clue under any circumstance. And they tell you how many of the surrounding cells are shaded. So this is telling me 3 of the surrounding up to 8 cells are shaded. So in this case, it's going to mean all 3 of these are shaded is what that's going to mean. Here, this one is saying that there's 4 cells shaded, but that are in a group of 2 and another group of 2. Okay, and the groups are only counted again in the surrounding cells, the surrounding 8 cells. And if they're broken into groups, there has to be a white cell separating them. So I cannot say that is my group of 2 and my group of 2. No, that's a group of 4. Note when you have clues like this, where there's a 1 and a 3, note that they are not given in any particular order. So you can't infer that the 1 goes on the left and the 3 goes on the right or anything like that. Or even if you've got 3 clues that they're in some sort of order. They're just in a random order. Okay, but that is the rules for Tapa. So again, the key thing is the black cells have to stay connected, and I can't make 2x2s with them, and I have to obey these counting things. Okay, so I've got a few gimmies. So this 3 is a gimme. By the way, I should say, there's a link in the description below if you want to try the puzzle yourself. But I'm going to go ahead and get started and try to do this. So let's start with the gimmies. So the things that can only be filled in one way. So there is a 3 here. There's a 7 over here. These 1s actually can only be filled this way, if you look at it. Note, by the way, you can get the dot in Puzzlink by right-clicking. The dot is just symbology for is not shaded. These 2 2s, I can only do like that. This 1 1 in the corner, I can only do like that. This 1 1 1, again, I can just sort of count. Basically, if you want to figure out how am I doing this, if I think about like how many cells am I going to take up at minimum, it'll be 1, a gap is 2, 1 is 3, another gap is 4, and then 1 is 5. That's telling me the minimum number of cells I can fit a 1 1 1 in is 5, and that's exactly the number I have. Likewise, the minimum number I can fit a 1 3 in is 5. 1 plus 3 plus 1, but I don't know what order the 1 and the 3 go. Okay, so I have that. as my sort of start. Now, this 3, 3 here is also special because I know this is 2 gaps of 3, and notice this black cell here has bled into this already. So this needs to be a group of 3, and that needs to be a group of 3. So notice how this 3, 3, once I have the 7, that's forced as well. Also, remember, no 2x2s. So as soon as you're about to make a 2x2, you can dot it to make sure you don't. And remember, the black cells have to all connect. So if you ever have, and this will show up in a lot of different puzzle types, if you ever have a cell like this black cell that only has one place it can grow, it has to grow there. So this grows here, and then I need to avoid some more 2x2s. This black cell needs to grow over here. And notice it's not connected to its other black cells. So this group of 3 black cells now have to grow, and they can only grow like that. Likewise, this black cell over here has to grow. So it has to grow like that. And we've got a couple more places, like here, that same thing happens. Here, that same thing happens. And this L is still not connected, so it needs to grow at least one more. This lone black cell over here, it needs to connect, so it grows out. Likewise, this black cell needs to connect. And one thing you can notice, by the way, about the fact that this 1, 3 is here is that because a 1, 3, we said, takes 5 cells no matter how we do it, there's a 1 at one end and then a space and then a 3. So actually, regardless of where the space is, the space can only be in one of these 2 cells. The others are all shaded. And actually, if you look at this cell now, actually we know exactly how that works owing to the connectedness requirement. So that actually sort of fixes the direction that this goes. Okay, this can run up here like that. Again, being mindful not to create a 2x2. This whole U shape, it needs to grow. And now this Z needs to get out and connect to its friends. It can't do that if it takes this cell, because if it takes this cell, I create the boat, as I like to call this pentomino and this orientation. And then this becomes undoable. So it can't go that way. Basically, another way to think about this is this pool of ink needs to connect to all the other pools of ink. And the only pool of ink it can connect to is this one. So that needs to be shaded. And then this is unshaded. Okay. That, again, creates a giant now pool of ink where I need to extend this to here. And that is then going to create a 2x2 I have to avoid. Okay. And now if you look at this whole pool of ink, that now has to connect to the pools of ink up in the upper left. And the only place that that can go is through here. And again, it still has to keep growing. So we know it grows through there at the very least. So we can actually also grow that. Okay. Now, how do we finish this? Okay, so we're looking at this top left corner here, and we have to make sure we connect this piece, and this piece. And we have to be a little bit careful about exactly how we do that, because if we just sort of try and do it randomly, we're going to create a 2x2. And we don't want to create a 2x2. So the thing I'm seeing, and there's probably a better way to see this, but the thing I'm seeing is that if I don't shade this cell, then I force this pattern in order to connect around it. But now this is also unshaded, and I didn't actually connect things. And I'm using the trial feature here again to make that sort of appear. If you want to like look at what something looks like if you make a move but not commit to it, click the trial mode in Puzzlink and it'll do that. So what I was saying was if I don't shade this cell, then I definitely don't connect things. So I have to shade that cell, which means I don't shade that cell. And now I have a similar problem. If I don't shade this cell, sorry, I should say, if I do shade this cell, then I don't shade that cell, and now I don't connect the top part either. So I do have to shade this cell, and now that actually finishes these other pieces over here. Now, one thing that I want to point out, and this is a helpful scanning technique for a lot of these puzzles, is that if you sort of look at the cells that you know to be white and view them as sort of a diagonally connected chain. So I have this chain of white cells here and over here. You can never have one of those connect two borders. So for example, if this cell was white, what I'm saying is I have this chain that connects this edge all the way over to this edge. I'm sort of viewing this sort of diagonally connected group. What that's done is it's created an impassable border for this collection of ink cells to connect to this collection of ink cells. So you can never create a chain of white cells that even diagonally connects border to border. And so in particular, either of these cells, if they were unshaded, would do that. And so those are both shaded, which does indeed make that cell unshaded and that cell unshaded. And now this has to reach up to grab this ink blot up there like that. And you can repeat this diagonal scanning trick here to say if this cell were unshaded, I would have, in fact, all kinds of crisscrossing. Sorry, this one wouldn't necessarily be, but I would definitely have this collection isolating things. You can also think of that as saying this giant blob only has one way to connect to this corner, which is that way. But I find that sort of visually for me in these genres, scanning for the diagonal connected bits of white really helps. Okay, so we've got that. Now, I see I can't shade this cell because if I do, I unshade both of these and my things don't connect. So if I don't shade that cell, then I now have to shade that cell and shade that cell. And we're done. Very lovely little Tapa there. This is one of those, this is probably one of the 5 most common genres or so, would be Tapa, Hayawake, Yajalin, Masu, Philomeno. I'm probably running out before I run out of genres, but something like that are the most common ones. But this is up there. You'll find a lot of these. Nurikabe I should have listed in my most common genres, which, by the way, if you're looking for another genre that's pretty similar to this, Nurikabe is a somewhat similar genre. But that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you gave it a try, but I'll see you soon on another episode of Invitation to Puzzles. Ta-ta for now.